All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's workshop. If you can see us and hear us, okay, let us know. I want to make sure that everything is coming through loud and clear. Cedric, you might be muted. Let me double check this.
Yeah.
There we go. I think we can hear you now.
All right. Okay. So good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. So waiting for some feedback coming from you, just to see if the audio is okay, and we can start right away.
Hi to here. Welcome. Yes, give us a thumbs up if you can hear us.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like we good, right? Okay, right. Let's go. So welcome. So today, let's start with you, Ryan. Could you introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Ryan Welford. I am a developer advocate here at DataStax. I am a front-end developer, Apache Cassandra expert, and I love to teach and communicate and share some complex topics in simple form. So I'm excited to be here with you guys and all
right.
Yeah.
And me, you know, the old guy keep coming every week, so or almost. So I'm leading the developer advocacy team at DataStax. I'm mostly a Java guy, Java geek. Today's workshop will be a lot of JavaScript, so I will keep my mouth shut during the hands-on and let Ryan drives you. But I'm certified on Cassandra and yeah, love anything technical. Oh, just if you want to join my network, here my coordinates for LinkedIn, Twitter, and GitHub. So feel free to invite me. Always good to have more people in the network. It's not only me and Ryan on screen. We have a full team helping us building the content, answering your question, and overall helping the community. So this is all the cool guys and ladies that you see on screen right now. This is what we will cover today. So it's a 2 hours workshop. We'll try to stay in the 2 hours. So a little bit of housekeeping, our goal, what we will build, and then building layer after layer, starting with the database, then the backend, then the front end, and then the overall application. It's a live hands-on workshop, so we expect you to do the hands-on with us. So it's live stream, so we are totally live. We are both on YouTube and Twitch. We are monitoring the chat mostly on YouTube. Twitch is just for the backup. But if you are watching the recording right now, we are also on Discord, so we can answer your question there even if the session is over. We will do live quiz using something called menti.com that we will try very, very soon, just to keep the session super interactive, okay? So we try to get that super with full of energy. We told you you will do some hands-on. Everything you need, the code, the materials, the slide are available for you on GitHub. The link are in the description below. On the YouTube chat, at any point of time, you can use bang GitHub and you will get the link popping up in the chat. You will have an IDE also hosted in the cloud. It's called Gitpod. You will have a database hosted in the cloud called ASTRA. And for the front end and hosting, we will use Netlify. All right. There is no certificate just to attend the session, but we ask you to do some homeworks. Okay, super easy. Super easy. You have a couple of weeks to complete those homework. You fill the form, and we check that you completed all the steps, and we give you a nice badge that you can brag with on LinkedIn or whatever. This is kind of our brand now. For every workshop we are doing, we have a dedicated badge, and we have now 33 badges. So if for some reason the topic today is not exactly what you expect, take the time to browse the YouTube channel and see all the topics that you have covered before. We are doing a lot on multiple languages and multiple technology. Today content is for beginners, okay? So we will try to keep the level pretty low. If you feel overwhelmed, it's better to listen what we say and see what we are doing instead of trying to do the same at the same time, because the session is recorded. So you can come back later and redo the exercises at your own pace. Everything we do today is free, no credit card will be needed, of course, and you can redo that as much as you want, it's free. Okay, let's start with the quiz. We told you we want that to be super interactive. So for the quiz, you open a new tab on your browser, or you use your phone and you go to menti.com and you enter the code that it is on screen. So 32056305, or just scan the QR code on screen and we will just show you how it works. I will ask you questions live and we will see your answers live. Okay, so let's see how, and if you are connected, just use the thumb up just for me to know how many we are. We are currently 74 on the YouTube live. So, let's be at least 30 in Menti. So let me show you back this code. Menti.com, here is the code. The code is also available to you in the YouTube chat. You can copy paste that from there or use the QR code. Ryan, we need some waiting music.
I got you. Here we go. And these initial questions are just to kind of get to know our audience better and be able to better tailor the experience to you guys. So we really appreciate you participating and letting us know a little bit more about you.
All right. Okay, let's keep moving. We have a lot of technical topic to cover, so let's move on. So first, hey, where are you joining from? So it's just a map showing, where you are from. So it's pretty cool to see that we are spread across the world. India, as usual, pretty popular there. Thank you for coming. It must be pretty late for you. So we will try to stay on time. So people coming from, America, Europe, look at that. Cool, right? So it's a truly distributed session.
Where are you from, Cedric?
Oh, I'm from France. Can you tell with my accent? Yeah, and let me copy back the the code here. Yeah, so look at that. Brexit Tanya. Love it. Yeah, what's the name of the prime minister today? Okay, no, I wouldn't go into that. All right, That's you guys just got annihilated, so it's not probably a funny topic. All right, so next question would be, how much experience do we have with GraphQL? Today we will interact with the database using GraphQL APIs. Okay, I created GraphQL.
Wow.
All right, so give us your number and we will invite
bring you on the workshop
on screen with us. Okay, completely beginner, totally what we expect. Okay, you will manipulate what GraphQL is today. You will have a good understanding, and if you already know that, you have plenty of queries and commands to execute. Are you familiar with React? So the front end has been built with React. JavaScript, not TypeScript, I think. So just React, and for the backend, we will use something called Netlify. An Netlify function. Oh wow, look at that! So we can move quickly now. Today, a lot of people are already familiar with React. So great.
That's good. We probably won't go deep on React. We'll talk about it a little bit, but it's good. Nice. It's good to have a good familiarity with it.
Okay, you will not get lost with the code. And that's it. We will come back at the end with a quiz for you, but for now, let's dig into the content. It has been already almost 10 minutes, so let's get serious. So our goal for today, as you expect, is to build a clone of the React the clone of the Netflix dashboard, the Netflix user interface, the one where you saw the different movies. So when you build a full stack application, you expect to have 3 layers. the front end, which is the user interface, which you interact with through your web browser or mobile phone. Then the backend, an API, also implemented with JavaScript today, and the persistence layer, the databases. But it's 3 layers. It doesn't mean you have 3 runtimes. And as a matter of fact, today we will have just one runtime, which is our application, with both the screens, the user interface, and the APIs, okay, in the same node application. We told you already for the user interface, React, for the backend API, what we call also backend for front end. So what the user interface will use will be serverless, just functions. And to do it, we will use Netlify. So it's a Jamstack main component. You create a couple of JavaScript functions, you declare the JavaScript function, and Netlify will expose those functions as a REST API for you. As easy as that. The backend will communicate with the databases. So today the databases will be Cassandra. I will explain exactly why and how just in a minute. We could have the serverless function directly interacting with Cassandra using the JavaScript drivers in a binary communication, but we want to be more cloud native, cloud friendly. And what you want to do is having an API in front of the database to ease the interaction from you and the database. And today we will use something called DataStax ASTRA, which hosts the databases and provide you already a GraphQL API. So you see the different steps. So what we will do today, one, we will create a database. It's the one who takes which takes the most time to start. Then we will, using the GraphQL APIs, we will create the object needed, import the data needed. Once the database is fully initialized, we will go into the code, first backend, then user interface, and start everything, and you will have that running in front of you before the end of these 2 hours. For the code, again, you don't have to install anything. I told you that. We will use an IDE in the cloud. It's called Gitpod. It is a full-fledged VS Code in the cloud. Nothing to install. Okay. All right. So for the database, we told you we will use Cassandra. So Cassandra is a NoSQL distributed database. So it's not relational, it's not SQL, it's NoSQL for today. So great for you to discover new databases if you don't know it. So this database is really built for performance. It has been designed to be installed on multiple nodes. Here there is no master, and the communication is peer-to-peer. If you need more capacity, you just add nodes. And if you need more throughput, you just add node. The data in your tables are partition shard distributed across those nodes. And the data is also replicated. So with this underlying architecture, if you lose one node, it's not a big deal because there is no master and the data is already replicated. So it's a good database when you cannot afford to lose any data. There is no RTO, RPO, the database will just self-filling. Those nodes are grouped in the big circle here in black called a data center or a ring. Those rings, actually, you can have multiple of them in a Cassandra cluster. You can have one ring in one geographical region, another ring in another geographical region, and your user could create or read data from any node. And this is Cassandra that will replicate the data wherever it's needed. So pretty cool. You have low latency, like for mobile user who want to get immediate result, low latency because the nodes are super close to the users, and at the same time the data is replicated across the world. So, you know, pretty cool. Here we put vendor independent. It's an Apache 2 project, so we won't change the license anytime soon. So open source, and we'll keep it that way. Okay. So for today, we will use Cassandra deploy in the cloud for you. And to do so, we are using DataStax's ASTRA platform. You will register there for free using your Google or GitHub account. No credit card needed. There, clicking through a couple of buttons, you will have your 3-node cluster running. So you can interact with these 3-node cluster running using the binaries format called CQL, Cassandra Query Language APIs, okay? The one that he released. So CQL, like native connectivity, binary connection between you and Cassandra. You can still do that, of course, even if it's in the cloud, but also you have all these APIs exposed for you on top of the database. gRPC, if you are looking for performance, REST, if you just want to do SQL over REST, document API to use Cassandra as a document-oriented database and doing JSON, schemaless, same use case that you want to do with Mongo, for instance. And of course, the main one today, GraphQL. And using a tool called GraphQL Playground, you will interact with the database. Okay, and forget about the rest. We will not use it for today, even if on the same YouTube channel we have plenty of workshop to talk about any interface that you can see on screen. So you can ask, don't hesitate. And with that, we are 15 minutes in, almost 20. Maybe it's time for you to get your hands dirty. What do you think?
Yes. So let's get our database up and running. What do you say?
Oh yeah, right now we would just go and start the database, I think. Database and token.
So if you haven't already, go ahead and go to the GitHub repo. You can find a link in the description. You can also type in bang GitHub in the chat to get a link. For the hands-on portions, we're going to be following the GitHub repo very closely. It has everything that you need, all the links, all the information. So if you ever get lost or fall behind, take a look at that and make sure that you follow the steps correctly. Feel free to ask questions in the chat. We will answer them as we see them, but all the answers should be in the repo as well. So go ahead and go there. You will find at the beginning of this repo, of the README, I should say, it'll give you all the materials that we're using, the slide deck, the link to our Discord, some frequently asked questions and answers. Also, it'll describe the homework that you'll need to do to get the badge, and we'll talk more about that at the end of the workshop. And then we'll have our table of contents, and we're going to start with creating our AstraDB instance. So I'll go ahead and scroll down to that. So this is the part 1, DB setup and data ingest. If you go ahead and click the AstraDB link, there's also a link in the YouTube description that'll take you right there, which is really useful. It'll bring you to this page to sign up for Astra. Now, some of you may already have an Astra account. If so, great, you're already done. But for those of you who are new, as Cedric said, this is a completely free service. To get started, you get a $25 credit every month. So no credit card is needed to sign up. You can get started for free right away. You can sign up with GitHub account. You can sign up with a Google account or just a normal email and password. So if you go ahead and create that account, it might ask you a couple questions of like, what's your use case? You can fill in whatever you deem to be most accurate, and that would be great. I'm going to go ahead and sign in. And when you first create an account, it may ask you to create a database right off the bat. It might take you through the step-by-step process. If not, it will show you a screen that looks very similar to this, right? So no databases, no nothing. It'll just have a big banner that says create your first database. So if you see this, we can go ahead and click create database. And please let me know if I'm going too fast as well.
I'm monitoring the chat, so it means to be an interactive session. So if you feel we are going too fast, ask. We will repeat the instructions. We are good on time. It's only 20 minutes in. We can repeat.
Yeah, don't be afraid to let us know if I'm going too fast.
And we are 76, so it's not a huge crowd today to be overwhelmed.
Good pace. Awesome.
Nice.
So if you had just created an account, you might be prompted to do this setup right away. And so we're going to create a database. We're going to name it, and you can reference this in the GitHub repo. We're going to name it workshops. And we're going to create a key space. Now, key space is kind of like a schema if you're coming from a relational database world. It's just a collection of tables. And in this case, we're going to name the key space Netflix. Now, you can technically name these whatever you would like, but a lot of the existing code that we are copy pasting so that we don't have to type everything for this workshop assumes these values. So easiest path forward is to just use what we've provided. Did I spell that right? Yeah, okay. And then you're going to select your provider and region. Now, for the free tier, I believe, and you can correct me if I'm mistaken, Cedric, is it just Google Cloud for the free tier? Still?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, exactly. So pick Google Cloud providers and pick one of the region without the locker. Okay, you should not be asked to provide credit card. You want to use the free tier. So you want to pick a region with no locker. So I think, Ryan is showing you that now. The first one is the good one here.
Yeah. Every area outside of South America apparently have at least one that is completely free. And this is just limits, it allows us to provide this service for free in a limited capacity.
Speaking of free, you might ask how free it is. It's still a database in the cloud. Well, you can do about 80 million queries per month for free. And each month, your credit is renewed.
Yeah, it's really a deal. Now, I did notice that we do have a Brazilian in our chat. Unfortunately, it looks like South America does not have a free zone. Feel free to just use North America in that case. We're not going to be quite worried about latency for this workshop, so it'll work for demonstration purposes. Apologies for that. Not a lot of options. All right, so go ahead and once you've selected your region and your area and region, you can click Create Database. And it'll think for a little bit. Shouldn't take too long. And there we go. We now have a 3-node Cassandra cluster in the cloud, and it is pending. Key space created. It'll take like maybe 2 or 3 minutes. Obviously, with everyone creating databases at the same time, could take maybe an extra minute. That's totally fine.
Mm-hmm.
Masmoto, you're new here. Shall you continue the session to learn something new? Absolutely. Stick around.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll find some really interesting things to learn.
Yep. And you can navigate the GitHub repo and see all the instructions and all the things we will cover. So let me give you back that GitHub link.
All right. So let's see. Are we trying to think of how far I should go? Let's go ahead and create our security token. Now, to connect to this database, whether it's from our app or from some of the tools that we're going to use to kind of visualize our GraphQL queries, we're going to need a token. an authentication token. And to do that, let me make this window a little bit bigger. Oh, yeah, kind of ruins the formatting, but that's okay. We're going to have to create a new token, which we can do in a couple ways. Oh, I'm still initializing. So I have to wait a little bit.
So when you click create a database, it will create a 3-node cluster database for you. So not surprised it could take 1-2 minutes to initialize.
So if anyone has completed the previous step and is either waiting for the database to finish setting up, or has a green dot here that says complete or ready, give me a thumbs up in the chat so we can make sure that we're all set to go.
Yeah, again, we do not want to rush. I already noticed that we have some experienced folk with us, so you are moving fast. But at the same time, we do not want to lose anyone.
Okay, I see a thumbs up. That's awesome.
Cool. Thank you. And look at that, now we are more than 80 live. So yeah, okay, nice, Binminko. Yeah, thank you. Still initializing, yep.
The recording. So this session is being recorded, and it will be available at the same YouTube link when the session is done. So
yes, exactly.
That should answer your question. Okay, so while we are waiting for it to initialize, we can still generate a token.
Yes, you can. Yeah, you can create a token while it is initializing, of course.
Stacy asks about the token that you get the moment you press create button. So that that connection info is used for, that's a client ID and client token.
Yes,
that's
so
different.
this token is got the permissions to work only with the current database you just initialize, and we will need a token with a little bit more permissions. Especially, we will need something that is able to download the SSL certificate. This is why we ask you to create a token different from the one shown in the database creation workflow. But very good question.
Yeah, that's a good question. All right, so to create a token, we can create a token while it's still initializing. So in the top left, you'll see your current organization. It probably has your email there for now. If you drop that down and you go to organization settings at the very bottom, you should have an option for token management. So you click on token management, you'll be able to generate a new token. And you'll have this drop down for to select a role. Now we're going to select database administrator, and this is a pretty high level role. It allows us, as Cedric just mentioned, to access more of the functionality than the initial token might have. There are options for future reference. There are options to have more restricted level tokens. So definitely take a look at that. But for now, database administrator is going to be kind of the easiest path forward. And then you go ahead and click generate token, and it will generate your token. And we do recommend to download the token details, which will download a CSV with all of these details, because once you navigate away from this page, you will not be able to see this on the website again. You'll have to generate a new token. Oops. And I just navigated away accidentally, so that's why I downloaded it.
Okay, so Ryan, here we have asked for showing how to go to the token management screen.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so top left, if you're on your main dashboard after you've created your database, on the top left, you have your current organization. I don't have that cool highlighter that Cedric has.
You're jealous?
Yeah,
it's called mouse pose. Now you
mouse
know everything.
Pose. So you see this drop down. It says current organization. It'll probably have your email address. or whatever account you signed up with. If you drop that down, and down at the bottom, there's organization settings. If you click on that, then you'll be able to see you have a few different options. Token management is the section that we want. And then you'll be able to generate a new token. Let me maybe make this window a little bit bigger. Yeah, this might be more what it looks like for you. So on the left side, there's token management. There's also user, role, billing. And then you'll be able to select the role from this dropdown, choose database administrator, and then go ahead and generate the token. All right.
Cool. Okay.
So moving back to our dashboard. It looks like my database is still thinking. That's okay.
I mean, it's okay. You know, we can now, we can now probably go back to slides for a little bit during the initialization.
Yep, I will hand it back to you. Kartika, you can generate the token while you're waiting for the green status, just FYI.
Yes.
All right, it's back to you, Cedric.
Okay, right. So the database is either initializing or eventually resuming. You know, if you do not use your database for 48 hours, the database will go into hibernated state, like stop. And for any new request you send to it, it will spawn it back online. It's a serverless database. It will work only when you need it, and you will never get charged if it's not being used. Even if we keep talking you, it's a free tier for today. We can go up to 40 million read and writes. Okay, so on top of these 3 Cassandra nodes, the Astra provide a GraphQL layer. So what is GraphQL, you might ask? That's a very good question. So created in 2012 by Facebook, like Cassandra, by the way. Cassandra has been also created by Facebook. So they use it internally for mobile apps, then gave the talk on React.js and open source in 2015. And yeah, super popular in the front-end JavaScript world. A bit less in the Java, even if it's getting some popularity. I think the frameworks and tools are getting better and better in the GraphQL world, especially pushed by Netflix DGS frameworks. Okay, so it's an application programming interface, API query language, server-side runtime, and that provide customer a way to exactly request what you need. So when you implement the GraphQL API, first you design the type, the entities, the structures, and the different functions, operations, mutations, as you like to do, to interact with those entities. When it's done, the customer will contact your GraphQL endpoint, will be able to see, hey, what is available as a function or object, and we'll be able to invoke one function explaining exactly what should be the result. The idea is to reduce the bandwidth used. You may use your mobile or web browser, and you want to reduce the amount of data that go well the network to reduce the latency and the response time. Well, GraphQL is a way to exactly describe which data you want to get back as a result. And it will really make sense when we'll start using our GraphQL endpoint today. I did a couple of conferences where I had a talk, where should you use GraphQL, where should you use REST, or where you should use gRPC. And neither of those is silver bullet. It has some strength, some weaknesses, and here I put there for you. So GraphQL, strength, weakness, opportunity, and thread analysis, if you want. That's my personal one. So First, discoverability. If I give you a GraphQL endpoint, you can go there using a tool like GraphQL Playground that we will use in a minute and see exactly what's available. Then you declare exactly what you need, data fetching. You can customize your response to some projection, do some joins at the request level. You get only what you need. So if you, as a server side, if you keep updating your entities, making more richer and richer, the client don't even notice because they will just request what they need, and the versioning is pretty flexible. It's still using JSON and HTTP, so nothing changed, and super convenient for front-end folks, right? So now on the weaknesses, you have one big GraphQL endpoint. So of course you can have multiple apps exposing multiple versions of the GraphQL endpoint, but it's not as easy. With others, technologies like REST, for instance, using the same backend, it's not hard to have /v1/v2 and just have two versions side by side. Here it's not that easy. It's a single endpoint, yeah, no versioning there. So because it's the same endpoint, it's hard to track what the client is really asking for. You can save the full request, but with REST, for instance, because it's a resource with multiple parts in the URL, you can say, I have so many requests to access this business object, to access this filter, and it's harder to do with GraphQL. It's nice for customer because you ask only what you need, but it could be harmful at the server side. Let's say you are relational, you have two tables, groups and user. And of course, you want to get all the details of users part of a group. So you understand that very well. You will just search for all the users of a group. And then for every single user, you will trigger another request to get the detail of the user. So this pattern is what we call n+1 select. You create one, you do the first request and then n request for any item of the list. I give you a one level deep of recursivity, n+1 select. But with GraphQL, if you do not pay attention, you can go as deep as you want. And so one HTTP request could end up with hundreds of requests against the database. So it could be tricky. And when you implement your own, you need to be careful. Rate limiting is then, I would say, mandatory, but recommended to limit the pressure that you will put at the database level. Caching is hard. As you have your request very, very fine-grained tuning, it's hard to say how two requests are exactly the same. Some solution exists, but it's not as good as REST, for instance. So the sweet spot, so here this is what I would like to put in blue. The sweet spot for GraphQL is really backend for frontend. The frontend only want the data needed for the screen, and that's it. Eventually compose data coming or aggregate data coming from multiple backend services. So GraphQL can do that very, very easily. And when bandwidth matter, because you will only get what you ask for. So that's kind of a personal analysis. When should you use GraphQL? But again, it's not silver bullet. REST is still there for a long time. Okay, so the database is probably now up. There we will create a couple of tables. So remember, we are looking for the Netflix front page. So you want to have a list of movies sorted by genres. So what we have to do is get all the genres, like a reference list of different genres. I always have so much trouble to say genre in English, so sorry for that.
And then I mean, it's a French word, right? So you just pronounce it how it's supposed to be.
Genre is a French word. Yeah, it is. But yeah, I keep saying, yeah, I keep hearing the US folks saying genre, yeah, okay.
Sorry
We're
for
not
butchering your
pronounced
language.
like a French one. Okay, so you want to get the list of, action, comedy, whatever. And then for each genre, you want to get the list of movies ordered by year, maybe, or getting some attributes. So we will create a couple of tables to do it. And we want a GraphQL API to be able to retrieve what we want. So a good way to work with Cassandra is you have one query, it will be one table. It seems weird, but I told you that the data is distributed across multiple nodes. What you want is your user to access a single node to get all the data it needs and back to the application very quickly. If you do select star from a table, it's not effective because you will have to get a chunk of your result on each node. So with Cassandra, one table, one query, you store together what you want to retrieve together. So let's say I want all the movies with the genre action. Well, I will make sure that I will create a table where all the movies with the genre action will be on the same node. And to do that, that field should be part of something we call partition key. So today, the focus of the workshop is most on the coding than the data modeling, but still pretty useful to know. On this YouTube channel, we have plenty of content just on Cassandra data modeling. So here, those two tables, reference list, to get the list of all the genre, and then movies for each genre. So question here, why select star will not work? Actually, select star would work. You will not get any error per se. But in the beginning, I show you what a Cassandra cluster looked like. It was multiple nodes in the circle. Each part of your table is stored in one node. So if you do select star of your table, you need to ask a piece of your data for every single node. It will work, but it will be slow. What you want to do is provide a where clause and go to a single node, get all the data on this single node and back. So the data is denormalized, you group together, you save together what you want to retrieve together. It's like the join is done at the save moment and not when you read. It's another way to think about it. The join is done when you save. And this is why here the table is called movies by genre. So here in that Cassandra table, the genre is what we call the partition key. So all the rows of that table having the same value for genre will be in the same node. Rows store together. K means partition key. A partition key is different from primary key. Partition key does not ensure unicity of a record. You need something else. And the something else are called clustering columns. So here C and C. And this is the group of those three column, three field, genre, year, and title. That will be your primary key. And this is what the table look like when you execute a select using Cassandra query language, CQL, which is close from SQL, but it's not exactly the same. And here, if you look closely at the screenshot, here label is red, and this is how you know that the values are grouped by this label. So here all the comedies have the same genre, so are part of the same node. And here blue means they are part of the primary key, and purple here just a data column. All right, so last uh, last slide before going back to the hands-on, doing way more GraphQL. So AstraDB got your Cassandra database running in the cloud you want. We pick GCP because it's a free one, and then you can access the data across multiple APIs. Today we will use the GraphQL APIs. That's the endpoint, HTTP endpoint. And to interact with GraphQL, Astra also provide the GraphQL Playground, which is a web-based client to interact. We could have used GraphQL, but we make the choice to do GraphQL Playground. And with that, I think would be time to go back to hands-on and create the couple of tables we mentioned and put some data there. How? Using the GraphQL API, of course.
Definitely. All right. So I'll go back to me. I just wanted to reiterate for everyone. I know Alex is answering the specific question about the select star or select all. That yes, you can technically use it, but it's really not performant, especially when you're talking about clusters that are, as Alex pointed out, 300,000 nodes big. You just cannot query every single node. So giving it a where clause is like giving it an address. Here's exactly which node to go to find the data that I'm looking for. As Alex likes to say, it's like ordering a pizza without an address. So just to kind of solidify that as Alex is talking to some of the viewers. All right. So let's go ahead and make those tables that Cedric was talking about. So your database should now be up and running. You should have a green dot next to it. It should say active up at the top. I think we've given plenty of time for it to get up and running. So at the top of your dashboard, workshop database dashboard, you should have a connect tab. Go ahead and click it. You might have to click into the database itself on the left side. So you can click on workshops, and then at the top, there should be a connect tab. And then we're going to click on, it looks like it's already selected by default. That might just be a cookie on my browser. But there's document API, GraphQL API, REST API, as you see. We're going to use the GraphQL API, so go ahead and select that. There is a image on the GitHub repo that kind of walks you through the steps as well. And then after we've selected GraphQL, under step 2, there should be a link to the GraphQL Playground. And the GraphQL Playground is a tool that lets us craft the GraphQL queries and execute them on our database. It's similar in some ways to like Postman, or what's the other one? I forget what the other one is. There's some like REST API tools that are very similar. I'm gonna make this bigger. So it should open a new tab, and you should see a window that looks like this. Not much to look at the beginning, but this is the tool that we're going to use to create our tables. And as Cedric pointed out when we were going through the kind of the very quick data modeling, we're going to be creating 2 tables. The first we're going to call reference list, and that is going to be a collection of all the genres. Sorry for butchering your language, Cedric. All the genres that we're going to represent. So action, sci-fi, fantasy, all these things. And then the second table that we're going to create stores all of the movies and their information. So the first thing we can actually, let's see, make sure I'm. So one thing to confirm, and I believe this will, this is by default filled out. But at the bottom of this tool, you should see this HTTP headers button. If you open that up, make sure that there is a Cassandra token already entered. I believe it's by default filled out. But if it is empty, this is where you can enter the token that you generated. earlier. Hopefully you downloaded the CSV. But it should be automatically filled out. So just double check that. And I am now in step 3C, and we're going to create our first table. So in GraphQL, I'm going to copy this over here so we can see it better. Oops. In GraphQL, we are going to create a mutation query, and a mutation is anytime we are creating tables, entering data, anything that like changes something, right, would be considered a mutation. We're going to create a table called reference list. And we're going to define the key space that we want to create the table in, right? In this case, it's Netflix. We're going to define the table name as reference list. So this reference list up here, that's in green right now, that is the name of the command that we're running, the name of the mutation. And then this is the command that we're actually running, is create table. Defining the key space, defining the table name, little flag to make sure that we only create it if it doesn't already exist. And then we're defining our partition keys and clustering keys, which are also our columns. So in this case, as the diagram that Cedric showed before, the label column is going to be our partition key. This is where the Cassandra cluster will determine where to put the data, which node to store the data based on the partition key. And then the clustering key just has the one column called value. And these two columns together, even though they're the only two columns, define a unique row, right? The label plus the value. And so once we've entered this into our tool, we can go ahead and click the big play button, and we should have a confirmation that reference list was created. Reference list equals true. And you can feel free to copy the commands straight out of the GitHub repo rather than typing them by hand. That'll take a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. So in the GitHub repo, we do have a little bit of a troubleshooting section. If you get any of these errors, like server cannot be reached, all these different things, there is a troubleshoot solution. If you're still having any issues, feel free to ask us in the chat. All right, so now now that we've created this table, reference list, which is going to store our genres, we are going to insert some data into that table. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to change where we are executing this command. So if you look at the top of the GraphQL Playground tool, you will see that we are currently in the tab GraphQL Schema. This is the place that we are going to do any of our table creation, any of our I'm drawing a blank on the name. For some reason, my brain is not working right now. But yeah, anytime we want to create a table or anything like that, we're going to use the first tab, the Schema tab. If we want to manipulate data, we're going to use the second tab, which is just called GraphQL. So go ahead and switch over to that second tab. And we do need to change something here. At the top, there is a URL, which is pointing to our database. But right now, it's pointing to the wrong endpoint, the wrong key space. So can I make this bigger? So at the end of this URL, get rid of the system endpoint and type in Netflix, because we need to point it to the correct key space. And once you type that in and click out of it, the error should go away, and now we are pointing to the correct key space. Hopefully that's clear. This is also detailed out in the GitHub repo, in the README. So hopefully you can follow that along. But we are editing the URL at the top of our tool to point to the correct key space. So now when we execute these commands, they're going to be done in the right spot. All right, so now in step 4C, also because it is a new tab, make sure that that token is still in the HTTP headers. Again, it should be automatically filled out, but just in case. All right, now in step 4C, we're going to, I'm just gonna go ahead and copy this over to the panel so that we can see it better. we are going to insert some of this data. So it's another mutation command because we are adding data. We are naming this collection of commands called insert genres, and then each command has its own name. So this is the action command, the anime command. So we can just use one as a reference. So we're going to use this command, insert reference list. What this generated command means is that we're going to insert values into the table reference list. So this this command is generated by the API based on the table that you created, right? So now that it knows that you have a table called reference list, you'll be able to use this command, insert reference list. And then we insert our values. So for label, we're going to insert the value genre. And for the column value, we're going to insert action. And so that's going to be the case for all of these commands. Whoops. All the way down for all of these genres. So go ahead and click on the big play button, and you should get a return of all the genres that we've added: action, anime, award-winning, children, family, and so on. So if you've gotten to this point, go ahead and give us a thumbs up in the chat, and we can make sure that we are not going too fast. Again, you can just copy the commands right out of the GitHub repo. Makes it pretty quick.
Everybody's playing with the playground, full of colors.
It is fun to, yeah, it's really fun to play with. It really helps wrap your mind around how GraphQL works. It really helped me for sure. All right, we got a couple thumbs up. Kartik is still in step 3.
Okay. So, yeah, we are good on time. Also, you create some table, then switch tab to insert data, switch back to the schema, switch back to the data. It's a little bit of back and forth.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Unfortunately, there's a little bit of back and forth. Lots of thumbs up. All right, I will move on then. All right, nice. So now we have created our reference list table. We've inserted all the genres that we're going to be using. Let's go back to the... first, before we go back, I'm in step 5 now. We're going to do a sample query. So in this query, and I'll go ahead and... Oops. And bring it up here. So in this query that we're calling get all genre, we are going to pull all the values from reference lists. So how can I select to see the table? So we're going to do that right now.
Yep.
So we're going to take reference lists, our table. We're going to pull out the label genre, right? Because that's the thing that we want. And in this format, we're going to display that information. So as you can see, when I've clicked the play button, we now receive an array of objects that contain value and the genre that we're looking for. So we are not pulling out the label or the we're not pulling out the label genre for every single row, right? We are only interested in the actual value, right? We only want to know, is it action, anime? We know it's genre already because we're specifying that here. So we don't need to return that. So this is how we can limit the amount of bandwidth that the request takes, because we're not asking for any information that we don't need. All right. So let's go ahead and create our movies table. So we're going to switch back to our GraphQL schema tab, right? Because we're going to create a new table. And in step 6a, I'm going to copy this mutation out of the GitHub repo and just paste it in here so we can take a look at it. Again, it's going to be very similar to the reference list table. We are creating a new table in our key space Netflix. We're naming the table movies by genre. And this is a rule of thumb for naming tables is we name it the type of data that we're storing, in this case movies, by the partition key that we're going to be using. So the partition key in this case is going to be genre. And so our table name is movies by genre. That's kind of just a rule of thumb. Make sure it doesn't already exist. And then we're going to define our partition keys, which in this case is genre. We're going to define our clustering keys, which are going to be 2 more columns called year and title. And in this way, genre, year, and title combined will define, oh my gosh, why is this coming up? Will define a unique row, right? Because we might have 2 sci-fi movies with the same name, but they came out in different years, right? So we can't just use the title and the genre because there could be multiple movies that fulfill that. So we need to have enough of the columns combined to define a unique entry. And then for the rest of our columns, we're going to just put them in this values clause. And we've got synopsis, duration, and our thumbnail. What's the difference between a partition key and a clustering key? So the partition key specifically is what the database uses to determine where in the cluster, which node in the cluster to store that information. That is the partition key. The clustering keys do 2 things. They, in combination with the partition key, they define a unique row. And they allow us to sort the data on disk. So if you see in the clustering keys, we have our order by. So it's going to order the year in descending order, and it's going to order by title in ascending order. And what that does is on disk, it's going to write it in a specific order so that when we read it back, we do not have to specify a order by clause at all. It's going to be given to us in the order that we expect. So that's another use for the clustering keys. Stacy asks if I can explain that one more time. I'm not sure which part. I'll explain partition key and clustering key again, maybe.
Yes.
So the partition key on its own determines where in the cluster, which node in the cluster contains that data. So the database will then know which node to look in for that data, so that we're not visiting 300,000 nodes. The clustering keys do 2 things. First, in combination with the partition key, so the partition key plus the clustering keys define a unique row, and they allow us to order the data on the disk so that we do not have to order it on a read. Oh, the creation of the table. Okay. So in this mutation, so we're in the GraphQL schema because we're creating a table. We're defining this create table command. We're giving it a key space that exists, so our Netflix key space. We're naming the table, movies by genre. And then we have these columns. All of these are columns. So our partition key column is our genre column. Our clustering key columns are year and title. And the rest of the columns go under this values clause. And in this case, we're naming the columns synopsis, duration, and thumbnail. And then the types are our data types. So they're all text except for, oh, it looks like year is an int data type, and duration is also an int. The rest are text data types. And then for the clustering keys, we can use these order by commands as well. No problem, Stacy. Glad I could catch you up. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and click the button. We should get a return that movies by genre was created. Perfect. I keep right-clicking on things. That sucks. All right. Moving on. So now I'm on step 7, and we're going to insert some values into the movie table. We're just going to do a few just for example. We'll be inserting a lot more later. So I'm going to go back over to the GraphQL tab, not the schema tab, the normal GraphQL tab. I'm going to go ahead and copy the command out of the GitHub repo in here. And this will also be pretty much exactly the same as before, except that we have a lot more columns to fill. So we are defining a collection of commands called insert movies. Our first command we're naming inception, and we're executing the command insert movies by genre. So remember, we just created the table movies by genre. So the API dynamically generates a command insert movies by genre that allows us to insert data into that table. And then in the value object, we are defining each of our columns and the data that goes into it. And then we want to return the title of the movie. So this section right here allows us to ask for a kind of a confirmation, a return value after it's done executing. So it's going to return the title of the insert as we do this command. And so we've got four movies that we're going to insert. I'm going to click the big play button, and we should see that the title is returned: Inception, Prometheus, Aliens, and Blade Runner. So we know that those four commands successfully executed, and we have those 4 movies in the table. All right. So in step 8, we're going to do an example retrieve. And this is important because this is going to be basically the exact query that we're going to use in the app to retrieve this data. It is a query command. We're naming it get movie action in this case, though that's probably named incorrectly because we're getting the sci-fi genre. But we're going to be querying the movies by genre table. We are classifying that we want to look in the genre sci-fi, and we want to order by year descending. Now, we've already ordered by on disk, so we actually don't need this section. We should probably get rid of it, but it doesn't really matter in this case. And we want to retrieve the values year, title, duration, synopsis, and thumbnail. So if I execute this, you'll see that we retrieve the year, title, duration, synopsis, and thumbnail for each of our entries. So in this case, Prometheus came out in 2012. So that's all the data for that entry, for that row, and so on and so forth. So this is the basic outline of a query. We'll be using one very similar in the app. But we're going to be inserting over 6,000 movies in a little bit. And we want to not necessarily retrieve 6,000 entries every time we refresh the page, right? So we want to implement paging so that we can retrieve a certain amount, and then if we scroll down further or click a certain button, then it'll load some more, right? So we're going to implement a paging system, and it's really easy to do in GraphQL. Looks like we might have a question here. So the syntax for this is title,
just
name. I'm not sure I understand the question, Stacy. If you're asking what
I think it was
syntax
for the table creation mutation, probably.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, so it would be on the other tab, schema here. So create table, open, and yeah, now key space name, table names are actually expected fields. By the way, with Playground, you do have the auto-completion. So if you go in the mutation in the middle and do control space, you see what are the available fields for a create table mutation. Also, if you go totally on the right part of the screen, there is here something called schema to see what's available to you. Here it is. So here is all the types with the different fields. And if you go to doc, just the other tab on top of schema, here also right in the yep, here we go. Here we have every single function. If you click one function, you get what is expected as input and output. This is what we describe about the good point of GraphQL with discoverability.
Yeah, it looks like Stacy, you're gonna watch through it again. If you continue to have any issues or questions, feel free to join our Discord and ask some questions there. We're there outside the workshop times as well. So glad to help you out there. All right, so to enable paging, we're going to, I'm gonna just copy this out so I make sure I don't mess up the typing. Oops. So we're going to specify a page size. So in the query, we have our options flag here, and we're going to specify page size as 2, which means we're going to retrieve only 2 entries. And then in our return, we're going to return a page state. And if I go ahead and execute this, you'll notice that we have 4 movies right now. It's only going to give me 2, right? It only gives me Prometheus and Inception. And it also returns the page state, which is this auto-generated jumble of characters. And what this allows us to do is return the page state in this case. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this because we'll need it in just a second. Like this. So we can return the page state that we just got. So this is something that you would do. Oh gosh, this is something that you would do on your serverless function, right? You can return that jumble of letters, and now when we execute this, it will give us the next 2, Aliens and Blade Runner, and it will also give us a new page state that we can then get the next 2 and the next 2, right? We can keep going down the pages.
Okay.
Sharuth asked an interesting question. Isn't the creation and updates of data done on the database and just the querying done through API? So this is a just showing you that it is possible to use this API to do data manipulation and creation of tables and stuff through this API.
Yeah. Also, if you use the drivers and interact with the database, you are with the stateful connection. Whereas using this API, you are stateless. So that's a better segregation of duties and concerns.
Yeah. But so yeah, you can do both.
Yeah, exactly.
Some might opt to just use it for querying and have a little bit more control. There might be instances in an app that you've created that you want to dynamically create tables based on user input and stuff. So it is very useful.
Okay, so and for Mikoe, so when you execute a query providing a paging size which is smaller than the data set, as the result, you get the first item you get the first items, but also you do have a field called paging state with a value. And so on page 2, this is why you are expecting to copy paste or report from the response of page 1 to the request for page 2. Maybe you can show it again. Yeah, I mean, you are just on that, Ryan, so we're good.
Yeah, so if I execute this, oh, well, I have to not include this. So I'm doing this very manually because we're using the playground, right? You would automate this in the final app.
And so if you do the request and do not get any page state, that means you get the full data set. There is no need to go for page 2. And this is actually how you know that you have reached the end of your table. That's the page state is empty, so no more data to process for your query. Oh, look at that. You're actually writing the full.
Typing. All right, so I just did page size 4 so that we pulled all of the entries that we've already put in. And it gave me a page state, and I sent back a request with that page state, and I get nothing back, right? Because there's no...
yeah, or the page state, you may have missed the page state by a character or something, because why would it put you a page state if there is no more data needed?
Maybe it's maybe if I did page state 5.
Yeah, remove page state requests just to see if you get back to page 1. Please turn on the music.
I can turn the music back on really low if you want. So yeah, if I do page state 5, which is more than I know we have entries for, I do get a null page state.
Yeah, exactly, no page state, because you get the full data set. We know we only have 4. Okay, I think we can move on.
It is important to note that you do have to request that page state in the query.
Yes.
If I don't, then I'm not going to get that page state sent back to me, and then I can't do anything.
Which would be inconvenient. Correct.
Right.
But hey, that's how GraphQL works, right? You get exactly what you need. So here in the values in the query, maybe you can drop, I don't know, year or duration and execute the query again just to see that in the response, you only get the field expected.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to send it back to you, Cedric.
Should we? Okay, let's, yeah. For Stacy and the break, yeah, sorry, unfortunately, because it's just 2 hours, we will just keep proceed and actually we will go into the code. So hopefully we will get back your attention and we will go back in code. So that would be your break, me going over some slides. Okay, so you have created the table, you have inserted a couple of data, you did paging, so you know how to interact. But as of now, you only inserted, what, 10 record? What if I tell you I want you to insert 6,000 movies in the database? Now, maybe using the GraphQL API is not the best way to do it. You want to bulk loading the data. We'll do that in a minute. And what about the code? I mean, it's now time to finally talk a little bit about code, because database is ready. Let's move into this JavaScript app. So you will need the IDE, as we told you, and you will use VS Code, but VS Code in the cloud. You can use local VS Code by cloning the repo, but then some tools and CLI that we have pre-installed for you on Gitpod will not be available. So for these 2 hours, stay with the Gitpod and you can redo the exercises on your machine afterward. Okay, it's just doing everything for you. So I think now you just keep going with the README and open in Gitpod just to get your access to the code.
Oh, are we already back to hands-on?
Oh yeah, you know,
Wow.
yeah, right now it's with
Short
me,
break.
you doing all the work, Ryan, sorry.
That's all right, glad to do it. Okay.
I will just do the dad jokes now.
I'm gonna have to re-sign into Astra. Not that we'll do much more with this, but just in case. It does auto sign you out, just so you know. So you might have to re-sign in. But we should be all good to go. I am now in part 2 in the README. So if you're following along, make sure you're down to part 2. And we're going to launch the GitPod IDE. So we have a link here. Right-click on it and open link in new tab, just so we can keep this README open. And I'm going to go ahead and move this over to my big window. And make sure you get your token ready, because we're going to need the token as well. So if you download the CSV, make sure you copy that from the CSV. If you forgot to download the CSV, you might have to generate a new token, which is fine. So when you first open GitPod, it's going to do a few automated setup things. So you might see the terminal going through some things. It's going to...
That's the wow effect, right? It's just click a button and get my full working VS Code. Already with Node, NPM, Docker, right there, pre-install for me.
Yeah, if you prefer to work locally, you absolutely can. You will have to run all these commands yourself. You have to install the npm packages, the Netlify CLI, the Astra CLI, all those things. So it's up to you. Gitpod does it all for you. Makes it easy.
Yep.
Let's see if we're still working here. So while it's doing that, we can talk about the window. If you're familiar with VS Code, this will look very familiar. You have all your folders and all your directories and files on the left side. You have your main window, editor window at the top, and then the terminal at the bottom. At the top of the terminal, you'll see there's a plus button. You can open a new terminal, which we will be doing, so make sure you know where that is. It should automatically open the README when everything's done. I'm still going to reference the README over here, though. All right, looks like it's all done.
Cool. So what was happening under the hood? I think we reinstalled the proper Node version and a couple of tools that we will need to import data.
Yes. All right. So in step 2a, there is a public URL. So when we run this in Gitpod, when we run the app, we're going to want to have a tab open so that we can see the result, right? So if you go ahead and in the terminal, type in gp URL 8888. You can also copy it right out of the repo. It will provide you... Oh, Cedric's head is in the way. That's awkward. It's going to provide you a link. I'm going to go ahead and just copy this link, open in a new tab, and paste it. It's not going to have anything right now because we're not running. But this is the tab that's going to show us our app when it's running. All right. Scrolling down. All right, so now in step 3, I want to make sure I didn't skip anything too much. Yep. All right, in step 3, Astra CLI. So we have a command line tool for Astra that is going to let us automate a bunch of things, including importing over 6,000 movies into our database. So the first thing that we want to do is open a new terminal window. So click on that plus button, and we'll open a new window, a new terminal. And go ahead and type in Astra setup. and make sure that you click allow to allow pasting. So it kind of freaks out when you first try and paste something. Just click on allow when that pops up and press enter. It's going to do a few things and it'll ask you for your token. So I need to copy my token. Let me go find it. Oh no, that's opening the wrong application. Oh my gosh. So I'm opening up the CSV that I downloaded earlier. Finding the token, make sure that you include the ASTRA CS part of it. That is part of the token. It's not just the random letters. All right. I'm back. Okay, so when it asks for the token, go ahead and paste in your token, press enter, and now it's going to create a connection to your database. The token from the spreadsheet, correct, from the CSV that you downloaded from ASTRA. Yep. It'll be under, oops. In the CSV, it will be under the database administrator column, I think. It starts with ASTRA CS. Okay, so now that we have entered our token, we're going to use a command that's in the ASTRA CLI called dsbulk to import a huge data set of movies. And you can just go ahead and copy this command out of the GitHub repo as well. It is a little bit complicated, and I'll kind of briefly walk through it. It's going to ask if you want to paste 4 lines of text into the terminal. Just click OK. So this is pointing us, it's executing the command AstraDB dsbulk workshops. So that is the database that we want to load into. We use the command load, and then we provide it a URL, which is pointing to our GitHub repo, and a CSV that contains all these movies. And then we have the -K flag for what key space we want to insert them into. So we're specifying Netflix, and the -T flag for table to specify what table we want to insert into. So we have movies by genre for that. So once this is all ready to go, you press enter, and you should see it work a little bit. It shouldn't take too long at all. All right, so now we see that 6,279 entries were inserted. 0 of them failed, which is great. And it is all up and running. So now our table has over 6,000 movies. Yay. All right, so I am now in step 4. Did you have any slides for this part, Cedric, or am I just going to the end?
No, I think you can go, and you know that's the best part because now you're going into code. So
I'm going into code.
Yep, and you have easily 20 minutes before we go into the quiz, so that's plenty of time to look in the code.
Perfect. What exactly is ASTRA? ASTRA is a database as a service built on the Apache Cassandra database. The database language, if you wanted to use this, use it raw, is the CQL, which is similar in some ways to SQL, but different. It's for Cassandra query language. But today we're just using an API so that we don't have to mess with that. All right, so we're going to talk about serverless functions. So on the left side, you will see our directories. Obviously, in the source directory, we have all of our React components and whatnot. We'll talk about those in just a second. But outside of the source directory, we have one called functions. And this is where we're storing all of our serverless functions. So because we're hosting on Netlify, there's this netlify.toml file, and it's like a configuration file that just says all the serverless functions are going to be stored in the directory called functions. So we're telling Netlify where to find the functions. It will then take those functions and dynamically create endpoints based on the file names. So we have two serverless functions, one called getGenres and one called getMovies. And so Netlify will then dynamically generate those endpoints, and we can reference these functions as a backend from our front end. So the first one we'll look at is getGenres. And let me make this a little bit bigger. Hopefully you can see it just fine. And we'll go through this pretty quickly. We have our standard serverless function definition. It's an async function waiting for an event, which is just the call. We're going to be receiving in that event call a body. So that's going to contain some information in the request. And then we're going to define a query. So this is the query. This should look very familiar. Oh my gosh, why does that keep happening? It should look very familiar. It keeps bringing up the dictionary. I'm not sure why. This should look familiar from our GraphQL playground. And yes. We are asking the reference list. We're querying the reference list table, which contains all of our genres. We're specifying that we're looking for the label genre, just that label, because we could have different labels in there. Right now it's just genres, but we're specifying filter out anything but genre. And then we are providing some options. So in our body that we're returning to this request, we're going to have a variable called page size and a variable called page state, so that we can do paging with these genres. And then give us back the value of each row that is in the genre, has the genre label, and return our page state. So this is our request. This is our query. In our fetch call, right? So now we take all this information that we're getting from this request. Now we're going to request from our database this information. We're going to provide it an application token. So something to keep in mind, we need to keep that token and provide the application here, our token, so that it can use it for the request. And then in the body of this request, we're just going to send our query that we've built. When it tries to send this request, we have a try and catch block that says, if all is good, then return status 200. If something failed, return status 500.
Yeah,
and then when it's 200, we're returning the response body. So anything that comes back from this fetch call.
And I think Mohan was asking, how do you create such file, and the name of the file? Where do you put the file to that be a function?
Okay, I'll repeat that. So we need to tell Netlify, which is hosting this application, we need to tell Netlify where to find all of the all the serverless functions that we're creating. So in the configuration file, this netlify.toml that's in the root of our project, we define functions, which is just where do you find the functions? And we just give it the name of our directory, which in this case is also functions. So if we go to that directory, we'll find these two files, getGenres and getMovies. Those are our serverless functions. So based on the way that this project is set up, any file that we put into this functions directory will be seen by Netlify as a serverless function. And as long as it's formatted correctly, right, we've got the exports.handler async function event. It's looking for the event for the call. It'll use it as a serverless function and dynamically generate an endpoint, which we'll talk about endpoints in a little bit when we get to the front end. All right, I talked about page state.
Yep.
So in that response body, if everything went well and our response did not error out, we should be getting all of the number of genres specified by our page size. So whatever we specify that as, that's how many we'll get back. And we'll also receive a page state that we can then use to get the next page of results. All right. Yes, they will have endpoints, and we're about to get to that. So
Yep.
I'm on step, let's see, I'm going to look at the get movies real quick. This will be really fast. It's pretty much exactly the same. We're going to define our query. Our event call will have a body again when we call this function. In that body, we're going to have a few things. We're going to have the genre that we want. Remember, movies by genre, which means we have to specify what genre we're requesting from, right? Because we don't want to do a select all. So we have to provide that where clause. So we're going to provide the genre in the body. And we're also going to provide a page state, right? Because we're going to also page through these movies. We have this other constant URL. We have to provide a GraphQL endpoint to this application as well. We'll get to that. So when we build this query, this should look familiar from what we were doing in the playground. The value will be dynamically given based on the request from the front end, right? So we give it the genre that we're looking for. The page size is hard-coded in this case to be 6. We could also dynamically do that if we wanted. The page state is dynamically provided by the request because the front end will know what page it's on and what page to request next. And then the values that we're requesting is the year, title, duration, synopsis, and thumbnail, and also the page state for this current request. Netlify is a hosting solution to here, and it provides the ability to use serverless functions rather than set up our own backend. That's the real benefit to using serverless functions, is we don't have to set up our own backend. So Netlify lets us do that really easily. And then the response and is very similar, pretty much the same thing. We do need that application token, which we'll get to in just a second. All right, so let's take a look at the front end. Let's go to our source directory, and we'll go to the app.js. This is where we're going to call the get genres. And you will see we have a fetch data block here. So this is where we're defining that call on our serverless function. And as you can see in this fetch, oh, is this big enough? Let's zoom in a little bit. Okay. As you can see, we have a fetch call, or a fetch function, and this is the endpoint that we're calling. /netlify/functions/get genres. So this is the format that Netlify auto-generates based on our serverless functions and what files are in there. It will always be /.netlify/ whatever your directory that you defined as functions in this case, / the name of the file that contains your serverless function. So get genres in this case. The body that we send to that request, we want to give it the page state and we want to give it the page size. So in this case, we are defining the page size in the front end. And as you can see up at the top, we have a const page size equals 4. So we're going to get 4 genres at a time. And then the page state is a state variable that will be set and referenced every time we get a new set of genres. So it awaits the response. We get a response back. We set the page state to whatever the response's page state is. Very important to make sure we know what page we're on. And then we're going to set the genres to whatever the values that come back. And so this function just sorts through that and gives us the values. I believe the card. What's the section that has? All right. In the interest of time, there is some other details on the front end that you can go through on your own. I'll very quickly look at the section component. This is where we retrieve the movies.
Yeah. Yes.
We have another fetch data section. Again, .netlify/functions/getMovies is the dynamically generated endpoint. That should be familiar now. In the request, we're going to provide the genre that we want to specify, as well as the current page state. And from the response, we have all of our values, all of our movies that come back, as well as the new page state. And then in our front end, obviously we have our movies array that we're going to map through and provide that information to the card properties. Those of you who are familiar with React, which I think most of you are, the rest of this should be pretty familiar. Kind of focusing in on the data fetching aspect of it right now.
Yep.
All right. So in order to see this working, we need to do a couple things. So Netlify also provides a CLI that we can use to run this in development without pushing it up to Netlify. We can run it on our machines, or in this case on Gitpod, and see the results. Let's Netlify CLI should already be installed in the Gitpod, so you do not have to run this command. If you are working locally, make sure you install Netlify CLI if you want to run it in a dev environment. This basically just provides a framework for running those serverless functions. So make sure you do that. We need to now provide this app our authentication details. So we need to provide it the application token, which we have, as well as the GraphQL endpoint. So let's go ahead and create an environment variables file.
So yeah,
right.
During the time you create that configuration file, here I would like to make a point. This is the reason why we do not let the React code directly accessing the database. Because if we would do that, you would need in the React code to store, save, show the database token. And as the JavaScript is downloaded on all the client browser, you have a security breach here. So having this serverless function as a REST API in front of the database is a good way to hide all your key or credentials behind something else.
Yep, very good point. Anything that's in the front end should be considered completely open to public viewing because it is downloaded to the browser. So we need to obfuscate in some way. And so having a backend authenticate all the requests to the database is the best way to go about things. And since we don't want to go through the effort of creating our own backend, the serverless functions allow us to do it very easily. All right. So in your terminal, go ahead and type touch.env and that should create a .env file on the left side. And go ahead and just click it to open it. It should be blank right now. But we're going to enter in, I'm just going to copy this out of the GitHub repo. I'm in step 8 right now, by the way.
Okay.
And paste this in here. So we have two entries. We have the AstraDB application token and the ASTRA GraphQL endpoint. And right now it just says replace me because we need to enter these. So the application token, we need to put in our application token that we've downloaded. Too many windows. So you know where to find that in your CSV. Go ahead and copy mine. All right. Make sure you include the Astra CS part. And for the GraphQL endpoint, there are a couple places you can find this. In your Connect tab in Astra, under the GraphQL API section, there should be let's see, that's not the right one. That's an example. We could use that one, but it'd be kind of complicated. All right. If you still have your GraphQL playground open, it is the URL in the second tab. This one. Right there. So if you go ahead and copy that URL, if you've already closed the playground, you can use...
I think it's pretty well shown in the screenshot in the instruction, but yeah, it's 3 write data, and it's this one. The one with the why it's called Chat Sandra. Yeah, that's weird. It should be Netflix. For me, it was Netflix.
Yeah, the example is for Chat Sandra, but it should be we should have a more generic version. Hopefully you still have Playground open. Otherwise, you can copy this one, and we'll just have to change Chat Sandra to Netflix because the key space needs to be specified as Netflix. So I'm going to go ahead and replace me with our endpoint, making sure that the last path is Netflix for our key space. You do not need quotes around these as well. Don't worry about quotes. And in Gitpod, it should auto-save every time you make a change, so you don't have to necessarily save. All right. So once that's done, I'm going to do a real quick npm install just to make sure all the packages were installed. I believe it did this at the beginning. If it did, this shouldn't take too long. If it missed anything, then I want to make sure that it runs. So in our serverless functions, it is referencing this environment variables file. I'll just go ahead and take a look at that. The process.env is saying, okay, what are the environment variables for this process? Give me the GraphQL endpoint for that. That's in that file. So this is where we're defining those environment variables. All right, now that npm install is done, I'm going to run netlify dev. So this is part of the netlify CLI. It's basically creating a development environment that emulates the netlify environment, which will allow us to use those serverless functions locally. All right, it should auto open a simple browser. I'm going to go ahead and close that because it's too small anyway. And I'm going to go to that tab that I opened before. And now we can see our app running.
Yeah, that's a haha moment. So, you know, when you reach that, leave a thumb up in the chat. So we are playing some, small movie. And as you can see, they are organized by genre and for each page.
Yeah, so now we have action, anime, award-winning, children, family. Remember, we're only retrieving 4 genres, but when my mouse reaches the bottom of the page, should request the rest. Then I think my mouse is, there we go. Just did it. So now when we get to the bottom of the page, it will request the next set of genres. and populate the movies. And then these movies, we have six movies in this page, and then when I click the right arrow, it requests the next 6. Netlify command not found. Make sure that you have installed the Netlify CLI, which should have auto-installed with the Git pod, but if not, go up to step 6 and run this command in the terminal, npm install -g netlify CLI.
Yes. You need to, for each terminal, I think you need to redo npm install -g netlify CLI. Let me try to write this command in the chat properly.
Oh, is it for each? So in the terminal, oh.
Okay, look at that. I think that's a haha moment. And you know, in the beginning we talk about badges you could have. I mean, to get the badge is just do a screenshot of the app running. That actually means that you cover all the steps. Yep. See, yeah, I love that moment when you just click and say, "Woo!" So we did not go very, far into the React component that we used to build these page, but each part that you see on screen are actually stored in the database. So pretty cool, right?
Yeah, and feel free to look through these React components to kind of parse out, how they're displaying, how the front end works more deeply. We don't have time to get into that today, but all of this code is freely available for you to peruse through and try and figure it out. So, so now that we have it running, that's basically where we want it to be. If you wanted to launch this in production yourself, there are steps in the README if you want to deploy this to Netlify. One thing that you will have to do, which you probably had not done, is fork this project in GitHub to your own GitHub account, and then Netlify can connect to your GitHub and automatically deploy it from GitHub. So a couple more steps involved, but you can actually get this running on production for free, because Netlify is free for a certain amount of uses. All right, with that, we have only a few minutes left. I'm going to send it back to Cedric for our final quiz and game where you can win some prizes.
Yeah. So after these aha moments, now it's a ha 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 moment where we play a game and you get swag shipped to your location for free if you answer correctly. How cool is that? So to conclude, Moan got a issue not seeing any movie, and for you, if you're watching the recording as well, that means that the application is started but cannot really access the database. So it is probably that .env file that you create at the end that should have the very the token and also the GraphQL URL properly set. And Ryan went into the different steps, so hopefully going back in the recording you will be able to debug your issues. All right, so I think we will be on time, 10 minutes left. Let's all together play a game. So 5 questions, so it should be pretty quick. So to participate in this live game and win some swag, so go to menti.com, use the link on the screen or scan the QR code. Even if you join during the session, not a big deal, come join, play with us. It will be 5 questions really on what we learned today or what we try to make you discover today. So at any point of time, anyway, the QR code the code to use is also at the top of my screen. So before starting, if you answer correctly, you get points, but the fastest you answer, the more points you get. And YouTube always got some latency, probably 1-2 seconds of latency. So the question will show up first on your phone or the second tab. So make sure to stay focused on either the phone or second tab and not really YouTube to have the most chance to win. And with that, I think I will move to the other screen waiting for players. So I see we are still 50 people on YouTube with us live after 2 hours. So thank you for attending up to now. If you enjoy the content, the energy, the materials, consider to like the video, subscribe to the channel. We told you we are there every Wednesday at the same hour, and we cover multiple topics. So always good to know. Okay, so everybody's ready. I see that the numbers are not moving, so everybody's ready.
Let's do it.
So, Ryan, did you have a bit of music to play, or you did already?
I did already.
I'm the only one who do not hear that music with our setup. Okay, so I will sing in my head. All right, are you really ready? Let's go. Answer fast to get more points. What is ASTRA-DB? It's a local in-memory database. It's a database as a service based on Cassandra. It's a gateway to the star. It was 15 seconds. Come on, everybody has already answered by now. So I see 70, 19 answer. Okay, 8 more. All right, time's up. Indeed, so we used ASTRA-DB today. It was a cloud-based services, what we call DB as a service. So let's discover all together who was the fastest. And look at that. You may see a screen here. So Constant Learner was the fastest, you know, the more the learn. All right, question number 2, everybody's ready? Answer fast to get more points. In GraphQL, which operation do you use to edit the data? Query, edit, mutation, writes, pencil. It was exactly the keyword to start the request when you edit the data in the playground. And yeah, indeed, it was a mutation. So mutation is ready to edit the data. Query is ready for read-only. So let's have a look at the leaderboard now. Oh, look at that. It seems like this time Tahir was the fastest. Yeah, this is what I could see. Look at that, so close. Only 2 points from first to second. So the 3 first in that list will get the swag. So, but you know, everyone can still win. 3 questions left. Question 3. Answer fast to get more points. What can't you do with GraphQL? Auto discoverability, schemaless, federation, response customization. And we need also to have a little bit trickier questions, right? Otherwise, it's too easy. Yeah, the correct answers are actually schemaless. So everything you do with GraphQL does have a schema. When you shape a query, you really need to provide the field expected. Auto discoverability, we shown that during the workshop. It was the little tab on the total right of the screen, show you what are available function and object. As response customization is really when you create a request, you exactly provide what should be the response field. Okay, it was a bit tricky. Federation is actually, I will ask for the data coming from multiple places to get a single response. And backend for frontend is really all about federating data coming from multiple sources. So only 5, but you know, nothing is done yet. Look at that! Woo! We probably have, and see, Ashe is still in the top 3. So it's like, oh, Viba coming from nowhere, just get the first place. But you know, still 2 questions to go, so nothing is done yet. Ready, go. What are the terms used for paging? Paging size, paging cursor, page size, page state, page numbers, book titles, and bookmark. Okay, this one is easier, I guess. And we redo the step 3 times. So I think for the page state, you got it, right? Yeah, at least for page state, you got it. All right, okay, most of you get it correctly. So what is the current? Tahir seems to be super fast again. Look at that. All right, look at that. 28.54, 28.53. Only 1 point between Kartika and Ashay. And yeah, Mohan can still make it to the 3rd position. It seems like Viba and Pushtawan are kind of far ahead. Let's go. Answer fast to get more points. What is Netlify? It's a platform to build and deploy web apps. It's a Java application server. It's a code review tooling, or it's a software to calculate your tax rate. Probably not the latest. We have not calculated any tax rate with today. Code review, who knows? Java, is it a Java workshop? Yeah, okay. This one is just too easy. All right, let's move on.
Yeah, but who did it fastest?
Yes, that's also important.
Very important.
Oh, lo. All right, okay. Hey. Oh, look at, hey, see? Ashe now is the, wow. Okay, last question. It's still doable. Ready, go. What is the main benefit of using serverless functions? I only need one function to retrieve my data. No backend infrastructure needed. None. Serverless functions are only for local developments. See, not the easiest at the end. Yeah, most of you got it correctly. Indeed, no backend. So let's have the, oh, Viba, so close. Just, so what are the outcome?
This changes
Oh,
everything.
geez. So congratulations to push one, stake one, very hard to pronounce. So you led from beginning to start almost. Ashe and Kartika also will get the swag. So for everyone who for the 3 winners, please now do a screenshot of your either mobile or browser, because I will share with you a form in a few seconds for you to upload that screenshot. And for the others, stay with us 3 more minutes, more stuff for you. Okay, I will let that open. So just a quiz. What can we do better? We are there every week. How can we improve? What should we change? What the topic you want us to cover? Anything, it's really an open question here for you to see. So subscribe to the winner, as Stacy stated. Yeah, totally. Okay, so for the winner, this is the form to fill. No need for me to spend a lot of time. You can go back to the record and see that swag. Homeworks. So we told you if you do the homework, you get a badge. Well, good news, homework is at the very end of the GitHub repo. It's super easy to get. It's just filling all the steps that you have seen today. You send it, you answer a few questions, you send us a screenshot of your running app, and voila. In a couple of weeks, it's manual review. Okay, we actually review manually what you do. So give us a bit of time and we will come back to you with this nice badge, pretty popular one. And if you like the format, we are there every week. So how do you know what's happening? You can join the Discord. We are 20,000 people in that room now. So isn't that cool? So if you have any question, React, Cassandra, Astra, join, and we will be there to run to response. Here it's put to 18, but now it's 20K. If you want to know more about those workshops, datastacks.com/workshops, or just Dime Workshop in the chat right now. You'll see what's coming. So next week will be build scalable microservices with Spring Boot and Cassandra. The week after, it's not written there, it will be AI as an API. So NLP AI algorithm exposed as an API. And the week after, I need to check, but they are planned long in advance for us to build all that content. We also have on-demand workshop here, or you navigate in the YouTube channel and see all the content when you provide. And if you stay with us up to the end, I think that's a good time now to subscribe to the channel and join the 20.7K subscriber and make the channel growing and make us coming back every week. Any final comment, Ryan?
No, I think I'm good. Thank you everyone for joining us. It was a really good session. I'm glad that everyone was able to participate and learn with us. So thank you all for joining.
Yeah, stay tuned and see you next week. Bye.
And as always, don't forget to click that subscribe button and ring that bell to get notifications for all of our future upcoming workshops.
Imagine a being gifted with powers from the goddess of Cassandra, who grew those powers until she could multiply at will, move with limitless speed, and unmask hidden knowledge. With those powers, she was able to fully understand the connectedness of the world. What she saw was a world in need of understanding. From that day forward, she sought to bestow her powers on all who came into contact with her, empowering them to achieve wondrous feats.